So congratulations to Dr. Freeman. We'd love for him to come up for a photo. And Tom McGovern as well, please. That concludes tonight's presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Next up is quarterly financial reports with Mark.
Good evening, everybody. That's the first and the last, probably. I get that. So in your materials for the board agenda tonight, you have the financial reports by fund and balance sheets for both. But I'm going to give you a brief update through through a PowerPoint presentation, and then anywhere along the line if you have questions. And then I'm going to add one thing regarding P cards, which I promised to do, so I want to remember to do that. First up, we have the general operating fund, and you'll notice we'll go through the differences between the two in terms of the revenue sources, but we're up around $9.2 million on revenue over 24 over 23, and we're up around 10.5 in expenses. All the expenses are still within budget, so from what you approved. General operating fund revenue, if you'll notice, you'll see that the two big components that had significant change are around a little 4.4 million, and then the other one is in the orange, and that is other income that is really interest income is almost all of the increase in that. We've been very fortunate to achieve higher interest rates, which we'll talk about later in the slides. For expenditures, you'll see that we're up around $6.9 million in salaries. That's probably primarily related to the negotiations that we've had with units and the increases that we've put through for NEA and other units that we've got, in addition to the increase that we had for the non-unit administrative staff that took effect on July 1st of 2023. Operating expenses went up roughly $1.7 million. Of that increase, $600,000 of that was related to insurance, which we increased the dollar amount of the insurance we have because of the transform projects that we've got online. And then also in the operating expenses, we had about a little over $500,000+ in a license and maintenance agreements, which without tech speak is just IT. And we have a lot of automatic increases that go into effect, and but we budget for those annually. I will say I did not talk about benefits on there, and the reason I didn't talk about benefits is because we're in the middle of the audit, and the audit requires us to adjust pension costs and OPEB costs and things like that are going to change with audit entries that we will present when we present the annual financial statements. Next up, we have utilities. We're below budget. We budget around $5 million for utilities. The water looks high, but if you remember in the first quarter of this year, we had a water leak out at Flow Valley. That cost us around $53,000, which is primarily the increase in water. Gas, we continue to benefit from doing futures contracts that we hedge against the cost from Spire and other potential gas delivery issues, and we are able to sell that gas to Spire and then achieve a better result than what Spire sets as their rate. So that's why we're down. Oops, too many. Technology fee. You'll notice that we're up slightly on revenue. That's for an increase in hours, and you'll see this as we go through all of the fee-oriented slides that we have. The expenses are pretty close to the same, a little bit higher on the transfers, but those were all budgeted. Technology fee and all of them, we were last year, this is for FY24, we were budgeting that we would use some of the fund balance in these. We had anticipated that we would use $700,000 of the fund balance in that year, in last year, and we only used $462,000. So we didn't hit the goal, but it's a positive goal. So for college and student activities, similar type thing, we anticipated that we would use $350,000 worth of fund balances. We only ended up using $130,000 worth of fund balance. So like I said, all of the expenditures are within targets. The increase in expenditures in college and student activities primarily relates to food and also to field trips. Public safety, similar thing. We had planned on using $400,000 of fund balance, and we actually went the other way and added to the fund balance by $148,000. The increase in expenditures for public safety is last year, and then you'll see in this year, we moved some of our police expenditures to public safety. Seems logical. So we moved more cost over there. Other items that we have in the package: rental of facilities, student aid, restricted auxiliary, agency, self-insurance, and capital funds. On the capital funds, you'll see quite a substantial amount of expenditures that we'll talk about here in a minute. They relate to the transform projects primarily. Like me. There we go. Balance sheet. We do this every quarter. We had $5,500,000 approximately in cash at 6:30. I try and keep that as low as possible so that I can invest the rest. And then we had $166,793,000 in investments. Now, as a comparison to where we were last year, cash and investments for the college, and this does not include the foundation or anything like that, was $216 million. But we spent a lot of money on transform projects, which some of the forced it to go down on terms of the investments. We do have 10.5 months against our FY25 operating budget, and that's compared to June 30th last year. We had not spent a lot of the money for our transform those. We were 14.2 months. Oops, again. Investments, we had about $65 million that was invested, and it achieved a 5.34% return. That return is going down. The interest curve, the inverted yield curve, which means that the interest rates for short term are right now higher than long term. It still exists, but it's coming down. If inflation stays in the 2.5 to 3 range, which I believe it will, maybe more, it won't come down a lot. And the reason why it won't come down a lot is because, generally speaking, you take the inflation rate plus 2%, and that's what the market wants. So I just invested last Thursday at 4.92. So it will come down, but it's still significantly higher than we've seen in previous years. I want to throw in the slide on transformed expenditures, and this is as of last Thursday. So you'll see that we've spent $169 million, almost $170 million. And we do get reimbursement from 2 of those projects. There's other ones that we get some reimbursement, but these are the large ones. We received $17.3 million for the Flow Valley project out of $20 million. So we're getting real close to having all of that. That grant was extended to 12/31 of 26, but we won't need it. It'll be done within probably the next month. And the lower one are the Wildwood. If you remember, we had $21 million approved for 24 and another $21 million approved for 25. So we're the reimbursements, we billed the state for the $2.4 million. As soon as we get that, we're going to be we will have expended the 24 sums. The 25 sums we actually 24 and 25 we have till June 30th of 25 to spend. Okay. I wanted to, before, if you have any questions, that's fine, but wanted to bring up the issue of P cards because we're actually proud of this. As if you can ever say that you're proud of P cards. We start and stop. I mean, we brought it down to nothing as of July 1st of 23, with the understanding that we're going to limit the number of P cards. And in addition, we're going to have a lot stronger policy, which you all approved and we changed. That policy included training materials, which were implemented. Individuals who have a card had to go through training. Anybody that approved their expenditures had to go through training also. So one of the reasons why this is important is sales tax. And Dr. Martins, we had expressed concern over sales tax, which is one of the reasons why we brought it down to zero. But I wanted to give you an idea as of today. Now, I'm going to give this number, and it's extremely low. There are people who owe us either personally or they need to get a credit from the vendor, $21.41. Now, you say, well, okay, you cherry picked, you just took today, right? Well, I want to tell you for FY24, the total taxes that would have been subject to are problematic, over $5, was $422.98, 20 users. Of that, $174 was collected from individuals, $248 was collected from vendor adjustments. So it's working.
Nice.
And we have 100 cards out, and we seem to have a good system. So I'm all excited that the auditors look at it this year. So
Filing probably won't be on our audit report. So thank you so much, Mark.
Okay.
I certainly appreciate the P card update, and it seems so minuscule in the terms, but certainly when you add that pressure, I think just making sure we are tax exempt when making purchases just make life better. So are there any questions for Mark? Since there's no new water leaks or gas leaks, we'll start with Dr. Larson.
Looking into the next 6 months, pick a number. What do you see as us expending?
we're
transformed, lowering these numbers, and I assume we have other finances.
we have, Hart has, his construction managers give us estimates every month of what they'll spend. Okay. They're usually off. Good from my standpoint, they're off to the good, meaning they're lower than they're supposed to be. But in terms of getting the projects done, they're right on target. So for example, this last month, last Thursday, we spent $14.5 million. So if that's a little bit lower than what we've been spending. We've been spending in the neighborhood of $18 million a month. And so just multiply that out over 6 months, and another $90 million in 6 months that we would expend. Or on the high end, you're gonna look at $108 million if you multiply those two numbers out. So just real quick on what we have. Okay, we included in this report. This is as of June 30th, so it does not include what we borrowed. We borrowed the $225 million. Of the $225 million, we have 192 left, meaning that we paid July payments and August payments out of those funds. That's in addition to the cash that I showed up on the slide. So
can we invest that money as well?
We're investing all of it. All of it gets invested. Everything gets invested. And everything's invested.
Yeah.
And the problem is what do you invest in? And part of the problem is with the rates coming down. I told you I got 4.92%. That's to February 20th of next year. When we get into the November, December, January timeframe, I'm going to pick up on the property taxes. So we're going to invest that also. And the investment income offsetting the interest expense, we're investing at a higher rate than we're paying on the investment. So I anticipate that by the end of the year, we will have covered that interest expense, and probably for next year also. At some point in time, you're going to get to the point where you're up to the $450 million, right? And when he gets to that point, well, you can't hold this to me to this because this is so far out. But when the dust settles, I'm anticipating that we will have approximately $40 to $50 million worth of unrestricted fund balance, in addition to having paid for everything on Transform. Now,
So,
go ahead.
You don't need to go any further in all of that, but at some point, we will have a workshop and a discussion about all that. You know, that's an interesting development. I mean, all of this has been so unexpected to have the money that we get the interest, to have the money that we've been able to raise locally rather than have to borrow. And now we're borrowing, but we're borrowing less. So the impact of all of that is certainly something that the board wants to know about, but I get it. That it may be a year away. I don't know.
I anticipate that the bond funds or the COPS funds will be gone by February. And I'm not, the reason why is that we took out of the proceeds, we took $100 million back to the college to reimburse us for expenses. But that doesn't mean we don't have cash. I'm just saying that we had to avoid the arbitrage issue in the trust account, and but that'll all be solved this year. So
at some point we need a good update.
I think once the COP funds are expended, I'm game. We can, and I could do it at any time. I love talking about this stuff. So if whatever you want to do it, I'm fine.
To dominate, but it's important stuff. I mean, I think the public needs to feel very secure that we're doing exactly the right thing with all.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you know, we talk about the building the 450, but we also have to talk about what other things were planned. When we had the workshop the last time, we talked about paying off the 17 COPS, and that's on April 1st of 27. So we have to talk about those things also.
Okay.
But
So Lisa, if you can add for the April meeting, because that you said February is probably when we sold. We don't have a meeting in March. April would probably be a good time to have a workshop on just our prop STL transformed fund workshop about that, if that works. So that way we have everything on the schedule.
go ahead.
Just two quick things. One, to Dr. Larson, to your point on cash flow, one of the things that we had to rebalance was we were including contingency funds kind of evenly spread throughout our cash flow. And those aren't funds that we plan on spending. And so the construction managers has to go back and say, you know, the assumption is we don't want to spend that contingency money. We'd like to return that for other projects, return that to the college. That was one thing we had to adjust. It's why we kept spending less than the projection that we're giving Mark. The other thing Dr. Martin mentioned to you is we expect electricity to go way up. And the reason for that is all of our construction companies, our general contractors are tapped into our electricity as they're building these buildings. And you're going to see that in Wildwood because we are spending at a very high rate there. So just something that is expected, but you will see a significant difference this year than you did last year.
One quick point to add to that, and I maybe a little bit misspoke or didn't say it correctly. Insurance went up $600,000 for FY24. That's on existing buildings and existing. When we're building a building, we have builders risk policies. And so, for example, the building, a Perrick's building out at Flow Valley is not on our insurance policy yet. It won't be until they turn the keys over. Now the equipment, some of that stuff will be, but so none of the buildings are on that. And so, but when I renegotiated the insurance last year, I took into account the new buildings that were coming online. So we're at $440 million worth of insurance. They wanted insurance carriers, their recommendation was 220. And we said, no, I think building $450 million worth of new buildings says that 440 is the right number. So, but we can come back and we'll address that when we do the April meeting.
Perfect. Any other questions from any of the trustees?
Yeah, just one. And I know this are months of cash and investment as a percentage of our operating and fee budget. As we continue to spend down that money, can you come back with our projections will look like in terms of the amount of cash we'll have relative to the?
Yeah, we can do that in April. Well, I can at any time, but I can do it in April in that meeting. The 100 million that I talked about, we actually had spent 130 million. So we only reimbursed 100 million. The reason why I did that was because what Dr. Martin always calls the GASB 68 money. that. And so I pulled that aside and it's invested and we will never touch it.
Good.
And that's the $100 million. Now, that means we have $160 million still on the, in investments to, to cover expenses as we go along. And just in a real quick sense, if you take $225 million and you add it to what we've spent, and then you add in the money from the state of Missouri, it works up to close to 450. It's but we'll go through all that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up is item 2.3, which is also Mark. And so this is supplier diversity program. I can't remember what year we started this board policy. It's been within the last 5 years, I would say. Does that sound about right? And certainly it's been an area that we focused on. Some years we've had better luck than others. I know as P card purchases have increased, is always a challenge of being able to identify supplier diversity when you're doing P cards versus a bid. A bid obviously is a little bit easier to identify. When people are putting in their P cards, it's harder to identify if someone is WB or MBE just because of the nature of the beast, as well as people using Amazon, which certainly is convenient for ordering supplies sometimes, which causes issues. But so, Mark, the floor is yours.
Muha, you got to put that one up. So on supplier diversity, we gave you a report in May. And so this is just an update of that report. You approved the goals, the annual goals, but this is just looking at the full year. So it's going to be a little bit abbreviated, but I'm more than willing to talk about any of it. And as Dr. Martin said, P cards and whatever, we have filled our position of purchasing manager, and our new purchasing manager has some experience in this lane, and that is welcome for us to figure out how to do that. For example, I'll just give you one example. Amazon can give us detail of their MWBE vendors. So even if we buy from Amazon is not, but their participant vendors may be. So we're looking at how to integrate all that. So as we go through again, this MWBE, so minority would be 51% owned by managed or by persons belonging to a minority. And then on the WB, it's the same thing. Somebody could be in both lanes. They could be a minority and women at both. So last time I asked that Ann Kearney Owen, who is on maternity leave still, but she's back next week. She prepared this report for me, and I had her put in the actual utilization against the goals. So if you look on the left there, you see that on services and supplies, we're doing pretty good on WBE, but we still have a ways to go on MBE. And we'll talk a little bit later about some of the things that we're going to do to accomplish that. These numbers are very similar, a little bit higher than what we reported in May. I think we were at 8% on WBE and down a little bit lower on MBE. So this compares years. You can see that this year actually we did a little better than we have done in previous years, especially as it relates to WBE, 8.99% to 2.3 last year. We're above the 4-year average, obviously, if you look at the chart. And so but we're not satisfied with that. As I think I mentioned in May, we're trying to figure out ways that we can achieve a better result as the board has requested. Consulting and contracting, and this includes Transform. This is everything. So the actual utilization for MBE was 10.84% for the year, and WBE was 11.19, real close to the goal. Again, another slide that shows the years. You see we're a little bit less than this year. Part of the issue there is that 23, we had a lot of contracts let for Transformed. So you have a tendency to see the numbers go up for that year. This is, another slide for Transformed overall. We're at 11.45% on MBE and 17.06 for WBE. Again, here's what the goals were for this year for FY25, which were the same as last year. And we hope to have a little bit better penetration coming into the May meeting. I won't read all this because you can read, but the progress towards annual goals, we have identified and certified 212 diverse suppliers. We're continuing to figure out ways to find other ones. As I mentioned, I think in the May meeting, you get into a situation where if something's more expensive, we don't have anything in the budget this year for MWBE in the supplier diversity funds, but we're talking about probably doing that for FY26. Progress toward annual goals. Again, we want to host supplier diversity workshops. We're doing that on campuses, along with DeAndre and other people that are, in similar type of arenas that we are. I'd be more than willing to answer any questions.
Mark, I know certainly we appreciate the efforts in this area and certainly have opportunities and look forward to what comes next year, particularly adding the money possibly to offset some of the costs to go with WB and MBE to get purchase services and all that. My own question is, have we officially updated all scoring for bids to have a weight for WB and MBE?
Yes, you have that in the documentation for
Right, it says update. So we have, it says work.
Right.
So that is, it says one of our goals on slide 9 is to update bonfire scoring rubric reflecting WB and MBE participation. Just making sure across the board that all bids
Yes
have that.
And understand something that on all bids, Ann Kearney Iowa is on the review committee. So identification of that is one of her responsibilities.
Got it. Thank you. We'll start with Trustee Robinson and go around if there's any questions.
I was just wondering, just if what's being done to get that percentage up for the MBE. I know we talked about it before.
It's the problem is that large suppliers suck all the air out of the room. But this is the issue about how do you go about awarding it. And now I will tell you, we have a 5% minority based scoring credit in the in bonfire, and the question is whether we should move that up to 10% and maybe get a little bit more. But when you start to talk about it is money, I mean, that you're having to pay, so it's down at the departmental level it becomes problematic. They don't want to spend some of their money because they got other things they want to spend it for. So we have to think outside the box to figure out how to solve that, which is what we were talking about doing.
Thank you. Trustee Lickby?
No questions.
Trustee G?
Just more or less, it's a point that I know the St. Louis Lambert Program Office is going to go through a partnership.
Okay.
And that partnership, I think they're going to start that September 30th. So you guys might want to check into that.
We will.
St. Louis Economic Development Corporation and some other facility, they're going to partnership. And so that office is going to go away. Doesn't mean the certifications go away, but they're going to go away.
And is tied into that project. So
Good.
I know.
Awesome. Trustee Graham? Trustee Larson?
I guess my thought is, I don't know how we came up with the idea of 15%, but we're so far from that, or, we've got a couple of years in here. Is that a unreasonable goal, or is it a reasonable goal that we just have struggled with?
Well, until we do this right, I don't think we want to change the goal. That's our recommendation in May. We need to figure out how to get to the goal. And if we can't get to the goal, we need to tell you we can't get to the goal. But I don't think that we've exhausted all avenues to get to the goal. Now, I would tell you that the goal was established 5 years ago, before COVID, before all these things that came down the pike. So whether or not that's still realistic, we will address in the May meeting when we come up as to what we want to do for 26, and also whether or not the goals are achievable. I don't want to lower it because it's aspirational. It's something that we need to work for.
And that's not necessarily my suggestion either. It just seems like obviously been quite difficult. And you've got a nice list of things you're working on. So we'll see how that plays.
Well, it's no different than the problem we're having in enrollment. Minority students, males in particular, or become it's down.
Fair.
We've got to figure out where they're going, or whether they're starting businesses, and if they are, whether or not they can meet some of our needs.
Thank you.
Not willing to accept, we can't get there, not yet.
Trustee Marshall?
I feel like that 15% was not a random number. As if I recall, we pulled it from maybe what the city was, I mean, it was like a comparable number, but I don't remember what that was from. Do we remember any of that? I don't
I
remember.
mean, I know we looked at others. I know Hazelwood was one that actually is probably the first ones to actually, that I'm aware of, like local school boards or elected boards actually setting some goals. And I know we looked at economic from St. Louis and
That's what I thought.
probably figured out what's a reasonable one to start with that's manageable. You know, just changing the bid weight is newer, right? That's just come. And so I do think it's worth exploring increasing that weight. Personally, I think we've committed to it's worth the investment. I know sometimes we voted down the lowest bid and went with one that was higher to achieve that. So to me, I think it makes sense just to do that up front with your bid so you don't have to worry about us overturning a lower and best bid for the next one. So I think to me, that's something worth exploring sooner rather than later. But I do think there were some factors that went into, might have been semi-random, but it also had some logic behind it,
Right.
to your point.
Okay, thank you.
I
Thanks.
don't believe, I mean, if you look at the scoring, because you have them in the, I think you'll see that the scoring didn't make a difference in those.
Got it.
And whether it was 10% or 5% will not make a difference in that award. But that being said, we need to figure out how to solve that problem too.
Yeah, the only thing I would share is based on information I have from St. Louis County, our goals are probably right on.
Okay.
They're right on. And that when you look at the NACES codes for the amount of vendors who fit both the W and minority qualifications, we have enough in the area. But you made a great point. One big contract, one big GC will take all that you have and utilize it. So it's tough to hit that number. So our goals are not off. It's just very tough. And there's a lot of construction going on.
And I appreciate it's not just giving up either, right? Like
Yeah.
there's been a lot of organizations who just say, oh, can't meet them. So we'll just either get rid of the goal. So appreciate the constants looking. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And up 3.1, scheduling of our tax rate hearing. Recommending approval of scheduling a public tax rate hearing on September 26, 2024 at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by G, second by Marshall. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? Nays? Ayes have it. Thank you so much. Item 3.2, recommended approval of the Board of Trustees 2025 meeting schedule. Is there a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Moved by G,
Second.
second by Robinson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Nays? Ayes have it. Item 4.1, approval of consent agenda item as presented. Is there a motion to approve consent as presented?
So moved.
It's been moved by Larson, second by Graham. Anything need to be pulled off? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? Nays? Ayes have it. Thank you so much. Item 6.1, Dr. Pittman.
All right, thank you. And just a few items this evening, as I know we have a workshop following this on changes to our enrollment processes, but it's been a busy summer. We've had a lot going on. And first thing can go advance the slide here, please. Oh, we got that. A few of the things that I'll talk about with you here tonight. We recently completed a leadership team retreat. Several people in the room were part of that, so we're continuing on with that work. I'll talk a little bit briefly about fall semester, but we do not have our census enrollment data yet. So we'll as Dr. Martin mentioned, we'll go into more detail in September. I'm on a couple of the state committees for the Department of Higher Education Workforce Development. I'll share what that work's about. And we're kicked off our new licensed practical nursing program in South County. A lot of new things going on down there that I'll talk a little bit about. Then, of course, we had our annual State of the St. Louis Workforce Report not too long ago. So our July 19th leadership team retreat consisted of, we're in the middle of our current strategic plan of 2024 to 2026. So here we are planning for and underway with fiscal year 2025. We took a close look at all of the goals and initiatives that we have in our strategic plan. And we just mainly focused on how do we continue to win with some of these very lofty goals that we have in place. And we also asked the staff that were present at the retreat to rate the complexity, impact, and understanding that staff may have of each item. Because as you know, this is a big college. We're spread out. We have a lot of employees, and we want to make sure that staff are understanding the impact and the magnitude of everything that have going on. So this is one example. If you would be interested in seeing the full report, we'd be glad to share it with you. But for every single item, the sample you're seeing here is guided pathways. We asked ourselves the question, to win here, we must, and you can see some of the items there, communicate more, make sure that staff understand what this is about, that this is a long-term quality continuous improvement initiative, that we have faculty and staff buy-in, that things are being communicated well. We need to also watch out for, so for each item, what are the potential barriers or existing barriers that may be in place? In this case, guided pathways that could happen. As always, we wrestle with a lot of priorities and competing things that are going on. And then we looked at ratings in regards to what the complexity of the item is. Guided pathways is a very complex item. What the impact could be, and then what our comprehension is as a team of guided pathways. So there's a lot of different scoring that goes on. We had several groups break out and then rank each item, you know, in terms of the complexity, the impact, and everybody's comprehension about it. And some responses I thought, well, you know, you think, oh, everybody knows about this. Well, not necessarily. You know, for example, we had staff from the HR department, not real well versed in guided pathways. And you think about it, yeah, probably not, because this isn't really directly impacting them as much as it would be for student affairs or faculty or other units that we really focus on. So it was a, you know, great experience to get this input. It gives us things to work on as we go forward. We want to move forward with not only the concept of guided pathways, but make sure everybody understands what it is that we're trying to do within the college. So it was a great retreat. As I said, we have the full report. If any of you would like to see it, we'd be glad to share it with you. Fall semester is underway. We started a couple of Mondays ago. We're off to a great start. Everything seems to be working well. I'm looking out at the staff. They're grinning. They're shaking their head yes. So we're happy about that. Enrollment looks very strong. We're 7%. I actually checked today. Thanks, Regina. We're up 7% in student head count as of today. We have our drop for Never 10s on Wednesday. But so far we're trending very well. We have a lot of dual credit to put in yet, I understand, quite a bit. And we still have 12-week and 8-week starts, late starts that will add additional enrollment in. Census date's coming up quickly, so in a couple of weeks we will know the full story and can give you all the information about enrollment that in the Missouri at the September meeting. I mentioned I'm on several committees. I don't know how I got on them, but I am. I think that they formed the Department for Higher Education has formed a transfer task force in response to the legislation we introduced last year. So today we had the President and Chancellor meeting, and we met at Mizzou for our annual, we want to feed you lunch and tell you what a great partner you are. But they didn't get welcoming news from us today because we're talking about the issues we're having with transfer across the Mizzou system and across the state. There are a lot of issues with transfer. At our opening meeting, the first meeting of the transfer task force, what we really heard was, in my mind, clarification of why there are so many issues with our students transferring in a very clear fashion. Core 42, there are over 2,000 courses now in Core 42. How do you even begin to monitor any kind of quality with that? There are individual transfer agreements between every university and every community college across the state. So everybody has a different alignment with what transfers. So our goal with the legislation we proposed, and we'll bring back again this year, is that we have statewide agreements in 5 of the most highly enrolled programs across Missouri. For example, psychology or biology or business, teaching, so that there are clear pathways for every community college student that all 60 credit hours transfers into a 120-hour bachelor degree. So there's no loss of time and we're much more efficient. So that's what that task force is about. They're trying to get through it quickly and wrap up recommendations prior to the legislative cycle starting at the first of the year. So we got a lot of meetings scheduled. I'll make as many as I can. Andrew's going for me for the one next week to keep that moving along. Then I think you're all aware there's a House Special Interim Committee on Higher Education Performance Funding. Those are basically weekly or bi-weekly meetings right now. We had a meeting this week. We were focused on performance funding. Now we've suddenly switched over to the core funding of each institution. So it's good to be involved in that. A lot of it will be contingent on will there be new funding that they can apply a model to? And our concern is, are you talking about redistributing existing funds if there are no new funds? So we're keeping a close eye on that as we go through it. Again, I'm glad to be a part of that committee. We keep receiving reassurances by there are 5 legislators on this team with us that they're not going to pull any existing funding away from any institution. So that's encouraging to hear that. But as always, when you talk about a new funding model, everybody's ears is up one point. So we'll keep an eye on that for you, keep you all updated. Okay, we've got our inaugural licensed practical nursing class at South County. And you see a picture of our students here. We're very excited to have this program there. And there's, as you all know, there's a high demand for nurses. And I think, Andrew, this is our first LPN class in the college, not just at South County, but yeah. So this is the first group of LPN students we have. LPNs, when I arrived here in 2015, was a big thing in Indiana, but nobody in Missouri used them. Now suddenly they're thinking, this isn't such a bad deal to have LPNs in the hospitals as well. So we're glad to have them. LPN is a 1-year certificate. It's not a degree program. So it's a very quick result. You can graduate a lot of students in a hurry going forward. The space is built out. We're waiting on beds and simulators, which I understand will be in a couple of weeks, I think. So we'll get just in time for the students to begin their lab work and practicum work. All right, and finally, we had our 15th annual State of the St. Louis Workforce Report on August 7th. Thanks to Trustee Lukey for being there. We had a great turnout. We were at the Merrimack campus for the first time with this report, and I like to lead with the highlight. We have a record number of workers in the St. Louis region. This is the highest number of workers that ever existed. I find that surprising, but 1.4 million. And as always, we have a lot of good labor and employer results, survey results, a lot of good labor data. We had a really great presentation by Washington University. They had their expert there on AI in healthcare research. So that was really interesting to hear all that. Kind of scary, but AI is, it's among us, and we certainly have to pay attention to it. But things like this, artificial intelligence can really help with and help practitioners with. We also had a great panel discussion with doctors and other healthcare practitioners at the event. We got talking about future trends in healthcare. The world is really changing, and maybe us baby boomers are the reason a lot of more and more patients entering the healthcare system, and it's harder to find people interested in becoming doctors and nurses. And so, we're in a very good situation with regards to all the expansions that we have in healthcare right now. We're just in a really good place. And of course, you have a copy of the report with you. You have the draft that went in the business journal and then the full report. For those of you that like digitized information, you can download the full report off of our website. So, Dr. Martin, that concludes my report pending any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Pittman. Are there any questions for Dr. Pittman? As always, appreciate the workforce and all the stuff going on. And I know some of us got a chance to participate in some of the walkthroughs of our buildings and look forward to our grand openings and ribbon cutting ceremonies to come. There'll be many to come. And so as soon as we can get those on the schedule, the better it is. So I'm sure Lisa will be sending those out as she gets those to get us on the schedule for those fun ribbon cutting and all of that stuff. So that is all I have, and hope everyone has a great first semester as we get in. And it's great to hear about enrollment going up as well. Lisa, are there any citizens wishing to address the board with other concerns?
No.
Thank you. Trustee Robinson, any comments?
No.
Trustee Lipke, any comments? Trustee G, any comments?
No.
Trustee Graham, any comments?
I'd just like to say, I appreciate the financial report that we did get today. And I appreciate the way that he presented it in a way that we all could understand it. Well, maybe I'll speak for myself, that I could understand it.
Appreciate that. Trustee Larson?
Three of us were able to visit Merrimack. I think had a really great time walking around. Appreciate all the work that went into that.
Yeah, I was really moved by it. I remember when I joined the board almost 6 years ago, and I remember walking around Merrimack thinking, this has got to change. That what in the world, that we've got to change these campuses. And you know, I went to all of them, and I just couldn't believe how stale. I mean, stale, I think, is a really kind of a good word.
Tired.
Yeah, I mean, just, you know, just like
Prison-like.
prison-like at Forest Park. I'm not a big brutalist, you know, fan. But anyway, I mean, I remember when the theater was built at Florissant Valley, my dad was there, and I was a little baby girl and ran up and down the stage all the time, but I digress. Anyway, when I was at Merrimack with the team, and the amazing architects and construction people who were so kind and made it so lovely and explained everything. You walk in and you are like, your eyes get bigger because there are so many windows. And to me, it felt so expansive. And I thought if I was a student, I would feel like I could do anything. And there is a vibe, you know, I'm big on vibes, and this has major good vibes here. And it's contagious. And I feel that that's what we're going to be offering our students with these new buildings. I felt that way when I visited the nursing building at Forest Park. But, you know, I think there's the thing that I love gardening and I love nature. So for me, the fact that there's going to be a rooftop garden. I mean, how freaking cool is that? So you're going to be able to go out, like, you're going to see this from the classrooms. You're going to see all this stuff growing. And again, my analogy of, I just think, you know, you're going to see plants growing. You're going to be growing. To me, it's the school growing. It's just an open, endless possibility of greatness for students. So I'm super stoked. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. With that, is there a motion to adjourn regular meeting and go into workshop?
So moved.
Moved by Marshall,
Second.
second by G. Do you have a question, comment?
Oh, and next Tuesday, I will be going to the hospital having a knee done. So I just want everybody to know that I'm going in and I will be back the bionic woman, Doris Green.
We wish you for speedy recovery. With that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Sounds good. We'll do a 5-minute recess and then come back for our at 6:05. Good evening again. We're going to call the workshop, resume back to our workshop, which we have one item for the workshop tonight, enhancements to the enrollment process, which I believe is under, there you go. Julie,
Well,
floor
hi,
is yours.
good evening. I thank you guys for allowing us opportunity to share some exciting enhancements about the enrollment process. I'll start with an introduction. I'm Julie Massey. I'm the Vice President of Student Success, and my co-presenters tonight will be Regina Blackshear, who is our Associate Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, and then Stephanie Ferguson, who is our Coordinator of Transfer Pathways, but presenting with us tonight on behalf of our enrollment process review team. She was a co-chair for that team. So we're excited to share the enhancements. If we go to the next slide, we're going to go over just our objective with this workshop is to present the key improvements that we've made to streamline and enhance the enrollment process for both our new and continuing students. Enrollment just isn't about getting the students here initially, it's about keeping them as well. Our presentation tonight will go over the goals that drove the enhancements that we made, talk about the resources that we use to guide the best practices and impact, and then the actual enrollment process enhancements that we've made, and then some upcoming initiatives that we have in the works. So first, the goals that we have to improve the enrollment process. Oh, I'm in charge. I forgot. Sorry, Muha. I'm like, come on. Okay, the goals we have to improve the enrollment process. First is to streamline the process for students and create seamless handoffs. We're really good about coming up with a process. You're going to do this, and then the arrow to the next thing, and the arrow to the next thing. But we had to really work on those arrows to make sure that those were seamless and that students didn't know they were being passed from one box to the next box. And so we worked really hard to make sure that from a student's perspective, we weren't different departments. We're all working for the same cause, and that was for a good experience for them. Second is improve our marketing and communications for both our students and their families. Their families are a part of this experience too, and making sure that they have the key communications that they need along the way to stay focused, to stay on target with whatever their next goal is. Third is providing an orientation and first year experience for our students that is welcoming and provides them with the information that they need to know when they need to know it. It's hard to pile in an orientation and tell them everything they need to know to be successful at the college because they're not going to retain that at that moment. So making sure that we're intentional about what we share and when we share it with students so that it is most useful to them. And then finally, providing students with supports to assist them in their success and remove the barriers that they may face. So we get them started and we need to make sure that they stay on track so they continue their enrollment with us and are able to complete their goals. Now Regina's going to share the resources.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
The college itself has committed to continuous enhancement as it relates to the student experience. We have utilized internal resources such as student satisfaction surveys, staff recommendations. We also built in a lot of technology. We felt like we were going down the right path, but we also wanted an extra nudge. So under Dr. Davis's leadership, we were able to bring in R&L, and we were able to get the industry's best practices, as well as seeing where we were, industry standards, and also make sure we're using some of the best practices. R&L evaluated our enrollment process and made recommendations for further improvements to streamline the enrollment process. And I mean, they did a deep dive. They went to campuses, secret shopped. They filled applications to see what our communications look like. They timed our communications to see how long it took them to get the communications that we said we were going to do. So it came in, we gave them what we said we were going to do, and then they went in to see if we actually did what we said we were going to do. They also had the opportunity to sit down and meet with our recruiters themselves, looking at the tables that they take out to recruit the staff. They looked at our documentation and all of our brochures. They vetted what we had was too much, not enough. So we got all of that information together. And so with enrollment, with them coming in, they helped us with being able to identify what those were. So we got help from them as it relates to recruitment and outreach, and also for students' retention and success. Also, as the college continues to grow, there was also some changes that we needed to make sure we're incorporating the pathways to success, to make sure that we are gearing the students to where we want them to go as they come through the door. And also after that, this year there was the enrollment processing committee that was also brought in to give us some further to identify possibly a different view and give us some additional further improvements that we could possibly look at. And then there was also the expectation that was provided by you, the board, 3 years ago, when I gave you all some enrollment projections. And I'm happy to say that even though we didn't meet all of our enrollment goals for those 3 years, I can report that for the first time in college students, we met every year. And in fact, this year we're actually exceeding that. To the tune of this year, our goal for first time in college students was supposed to be 2,507. As of yesterday, it was 2,751. I got the driving thing. Which one? Oh, okay, there we go. Okay. So right now, the enrollment process, this is it as a glance. It has been simplified it with clear handoffs that have built in the CRM system. That was the system that we bought to help recruitment and outreach and admissions as they reach out to the students. We've been able to utilize that with working with RNL as for some other additional services. So the way it works now is students begin with recruitment and outreach, who work the prospects and inquiry students into their application, to their applicants. Once they become applicants, they're then handed off to enrollment services, and they're the team that makes a lot of the phone calls to make sure the students have their test scores, transcripts, everything they need to have them ready to register. The enrollment service team is the one that then supports those students for those actions. And then we hand them over to the student success advisors, who collaborate with the students to identify their clear and educational goals and create a tailored plan for them to achieve. And it doesn't end there, because as we continue to engage with the students and with the first year experience, they support students by offering targeted programs and services designed to enhance success and integrate them into college life. The application. Of course, we made changes to the application in order to make sure that we were keeping up with not only the changes in the college's program, but also the community. So we have updated the application, of course, to identify pathways and areas of interest for students. That allows student success to be able to sit down when they meet with those students to get that information up front, as opposed to trying to dig a lot of that while they're sitting in front of them. We've extended the application period for returning students. This was something that we thought we had done, but through the actual enrollment committee, they brought to our attention that we had not extended it out per board policy. So this September, this spring semester going, it will be out to three semesters, which is what the board policy says. That is going to change some of our numbers as we look at it, because those students will no longer be returning. They'll now be continuing students. So it won't change the overall scheme of things, but it will change the view on how we look at those students. We've also included parent information, contact information that allows us to contact and reach out to parents and send them different brochures and things as it relates to the college. So involving them and making them feel like they're part of the campus community as well. Preferred name was one of the big things that we also needed to change, so we make sure that that's an ability on the application itself. And there's also more intuitive questioning to reduce students' errors. So we don't ask the students to tell us whether or not they're a dual credit, dual enrollment student. They answer maybe 2 questions, and we can determine that based off of the questions for them, what they actually are. The CRM. That was something we invested in over COVID, and we continue to maximize the system. It allows us to create enrollment funnels and recruiting events. And the enrollment funnel is a big piece of, as we talk about recruitment and outreach, how we track those students. So the CRM also now gives us dashboards that allow us to track our enrollment goals. So the goals that we committed to 3 years ago, we put them in the system, and we're able to track where we are in those processes and what students we're a little behind on, to let us assist us with trying to work those students. Staff are assigned communication tasks. And so instead of Regina remembering in 2 weeks, I need to call back Julie, it's automatically put on the system that every 10 days, these are the students that I need to call. So they don't have to think about what that looks like. It's already assigned to them. HTML email templates, working closely with marketing and communication. They allowed us to use some of the same pictures and brochures that they use to send out some of our emails. So I'll show you a couple of our emails enhancements in a little bit. Also, emails go or reply directly to the department that they came from. So now a student doesn't have to remember who they sent, who sent them the email. Once they reply back, it goes right back to the mailbox it's supposed to go to, and then we can keep moving. We've also implemented a direct to apply. So that means for students who have started doing an inquiry, they may be asking a couple of questions or filling out some that want some additional information. It also gives them the opportunity to automatically go to an application so they can continue and fill out that information, as well as the CRM is allowing us to do customized correspondence to students. I skipped it. As you can see, this is the enrollment funnel. This is not the recent one, but this is a current one. I think it might have been of summer. But the enrollment funnel allows us to communicate with students based on where they are in the enrollment cycle. It allows us to track the process, to see how many students are here, where do they move, and how often it takes them to move to one funnel stage to the next. It identifies areas that we can do quick campaigns. So for instance, if we've got those students that are confirmed, those are our students that need to go see advisor. We can give them a quick push or a quick nudge to be able to go out and do what they need to do. It helps us evaluate barriers for students. So when I see applications started versus applications submitted, those are students that we may need to reach out to because somewhere in their application, they may be stuck. It also lets us know if they've actually completed the application. So maybe they started it and haven't finished it, but it allows us to have that direct communication with them. It also allows us to communicate events such as campus visits, orientation, and those types of things. So it allows us to keep the students engaged. Recruitment and outreach. Well, we didn't get to 7% just by twiddling our thumbs. Recruitment and outreach has done a lot of work. With your blessing, we were able to hire new managers for the team, which can now help us focus on different areas as we need to as it relates to recruitment and outreach. Our mobile enrollment unit, and those folks were nominated next month to come and see you all to hopefully get acknowledged for their hard work. They have increased the enrollment number of students that we registered by 54%. We got way more high schools. Once folks saw it, it was a hot thing. Everybody wanted us to come. And so we went from 246 students registered on the mobile enrollment unit last year to 458 students that we registered this year. We also participated in college sign days. Now, that may not mean a lot to us, but you have high schools that are actually having colleges come and this is the college that you're from. We were actually able to show up with certificates and bags for those students who were actually signing on to be a part of St. Louis Community College. So they were actually acknowledged at their high school college sign days, which was a big deal for us. And so they enjoyed it. We enjoyed it. It was great. Along with that, it allows us to also track events for return on investments. So we know if we go to several community events, did we get any feedback? Did any of those inquiries actually turn into students? Did they do applications? It allows us to also be able to do some specific communications with that student. Hey, Regina, good to see you at the fair last Saturday. Looking forward to seeing you complete an application. So we're able to make those connections a lot sooner. There's also now, with the help of RNL, we have an actual recruitment and outreach plan that we meet on. And I'm sure Dr. Davis will present this at some time, but we use that. We use that to identify where we should be going, where we shouldn't be going, what communications worked best last time, what communications do we need to use this time around, what are the events that we want to actually lay out, what high schools do we want to go to? So we use that for a lot. We've also increased our campus tours. And if I can get you on campus 9 times out of 10, I can get you to do an application. And if I can get you to do an application, I can talk you into enrolling for the college based off of just what you've seen. So it's important when you all go to those campuses and you do get a good feeling about what you see around those campuses. It helps us. Just in July alone, we had 46 tours, but that was actually 232 participants that participated in those 46 tours, I'm sorry. So we're doing a good job with the campus tours. Outreach data, we're able to track where we are. So we knew for the fall coming in, we were up 15% in applications since last year. Along with being up with applications, the Forecaster Plus, which is what I'm gonna roll into next, also allows us to take those applications and grade them. So based off of how we have done predictive analytics working with R&L, we can tell whether or not you're a score of a 1 or a score of a 5. And a score of a 5 means you're a hot person, and we need to make sure we get in contact with you very quick to get you in to do the application and do the things we need you to do. And so thus predictive analytics is going to help us a lot. As we know, we get in over 15,000 applications at some point. Those predictive analytics will allow us to determine which one of those students we need to be reaching out first, which ones we may just need to send maybe a letter or postcard to. So that allows us to also identify how we can work with those students based off of what their actual scores are. Enrollment services, that's another team that's been working really hard, very proud of them. You approved last year and we merged the admissions and financial aid together for one department that's called enrollment services, and it provides a one-stop for the student. What we were seeing was that admissions had the same caseloads that financial aid had. And so we were like over communicating, double communicating. Now using the CRM, we're able to know who the students are coming in. We're also able to look into Banner and see which one of them have done their financial aid. So I can have your financial aid conversation with you along the way as opposed to an added conversation. We can now have those intuitive conversations as we go through. Staff have also been able to, they get dashboards, which is what I've got for you to see. They get to track their own progress in their caseloads. So they get to feel good about themselves. They know when they're ahead, they know when they're on point, and it allows them to be able to manage their work and keep things moving. So we're glad that they have that. Again, these are also assigned tasks. And so they don't have to put a mark on their calendar in 5 days, I'm supposed to follow up with so-and-so. The task will already be assigned to them and they can move that forward. We have moved to one phone line. We still use the call center during the peak seasons, but when students call in, it's one phone line, so they're not smoothed around to 3 different places. There's one chat, and we do a district-wide chat, which also means there's more of us that can participate in the chats because it's not just admissions, it's not just financial aid, we're a team now, and so we have more folks that can actually get on the chat and answer the chats. This year, we also incorporated, I should say last year, but we're seeing a good trend as it relates to first time in college and parents' gifts. Parents love gifts. They love swag. They love those pencils or whatever we send them, and we get a lot of good feedback from those. So that's working very well for us as well. Communication plan. We have been able to enhance the communication plan for the whole entire year, which allows us to build drip campaigns. We've built a great relationship working with marketing as well as R&L to make sure that we're on track. We're not over communicating on top of each other. The communications are clear. We're using the same marketing material, or I should say the same fonts and all of that kind of thing. So it looks like it's all one clear, clean marketing campaign. With R&L, we were able to get Zemi, which is a student app. We also let the students use our own SDLCC app, but I'll talk about Zemi a little bit in a second to give you an idea. For these students, they're able to get text messages, and they also are able to do some social media on there. Parents, we've got Campus ESP for them. This is an actual portal that parents themselves log themselves in on. And so we have parents that they receive what communications they want from us based off of their areas of interest for the college. Again, we've worked with MAC to ensure messaging is consistent, relatable, with that we have relatable visuals, and we're doing a better job identifying our roles to prevent duplications from efforts. And also there's, with the view book that was created, we got some assistance from Student Bridge that helped us with that. Also, we have transitioned to district email inboxes. And so Forest Park doesn't have his own enrollment service mailbox, neither does Forest Park. It's one for the district. This gives you an idea of some of the communication examples that we have. If you can imagine what the old emails look like or what our emails look like we sent to each other, that's what the students were getting. Now, these are the emails that they get. They get it with pictures on them, ready to register, links, and those types of things that they can use. So this comes out of the CRM. And again, we work with marketing to make sure we've got the right pictures and everything looks good. And then also R&L, they are doing some outreach as well on our behalf. And so as you can see, they're all branded the same way. They don't look like 3 different places. We're all on the same accord.
Regina,
Yes, sir.
just a time check. We're trying to get to about 30 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, I think that
Thank you.
long.
Quick R&L engagement, so you can all see, these are the number of students we've got on ZME 2365, I think that's the number. Campus ESP, we've got 2232. Those are actual parents that have agreed and signed themselves up to get our information. And then lastly, before I hand it over to Julie, the last thing we created, which is a game changer, is the ready to register. Students get this email once they're ready to get in classes, and so they know it's time to go see their advisor. We do the handoff, and the student is then able to make that appointment, and everybody knows what it looks like. I'm sorry.
You're good.
I think Andrew threw something at me.
Okay, I'm gonna go fast. So I'm gonna share some information about some of the retention effort, the onboarding and retention efforts for our students. I'm gonna start with orientation. Orientation really has been a continued evolution at the college. Our students change and so do we. And so it continues to be that way. For this fall semester, we welcomed over 1,800 students in our orientation sessions, and that was an increase of 600 students. So we're really excited to see those numbers, but we're not okay just with the numbers, right? We gotta have best in class orientation for our students. And so what you're seeing on your slide is what we will be doing for starting in the spring for our spring 2025 students. And this is really in line with pathways. So our students will be exposed to a main session presentation that will give them the need to know information. They'll be broken up into the different schools. So 6 different schools, and we'll have a group for exploratory students, and they will have guided tours of the campus based on their school or based on if they're exploring schools. That will be with peer mentors, and we're inviting faculty to be a part of that as well. Then they will move on to group advising, where they'll have a facilitated group advising session with a student success advisor that will go over tailored advising packets. So it'd be a curated experience for these students to actually understand the curriculum and why the classes that they're taking that first semester are important. And then they'll actually be guided on how to get registered. So they'll register during the orientation, but learn the systems, because learning the systems is half the battle sometimes. Moving on to the first year experience. So they get started with us, which is great, that we need to keep them. And so with the first year experience, our team has worked hard to develop just-in-time support. And this is really with the work that we did with R&L and retention, was identifying all of the things that a student needs to know from us to be successful. And that's one thing, right? But when do they need to know that? And so this group looked at all 16 weeks of a semester and what matters to a student the first week compared to the fourth week and so on. And what are they feeling? What are the things that they're feeling that first week? Because that's going to be different than the fourth week. And so they worked to use that as a foundation to guide the programming that they have for students, for all of our new students. And then also they will be doing case management. So with targeted population of our new students, where we feel like we can have a bigger impact on their retention, is they will be case managing those students, and they have designed milestone checkpoints that are aligned with the just-in-time programming, and also will be coupled with peer mentorship. We did some student mapping with our work with Complete College America, and we did focus groups with students. And the one thing that we learned, and was very consistent with all of the students, is that they learn best from their peers. They want to see someone like them doing the things we're telling them to do. And so we're trying to incorporate that with the first year experience. Next, with academic career and transfer advising, as you guys all know, that's gone through a lot of transformations over the years, and we are now excited about the comprehensive academic career and transfer program that we have. We, this fall, will be doing something new with advising, in which the students are all being assigned to an advisor based on their program. And so our advisors are all going to be attached to schools, which is a big deal. We've been excited to see this happen. But that means that then our advisors can become experts in that area and provide more tailored advice to our students. The other benefit of that is that it also helps to have more enhanced collaborations between academic affairs and student affairs, because it's easier to touch point with somebody in your school versus 80 different programs. And then with advising, we have a care and communication plan, and that care and communication plan, again, is very intentional. When are we sending out campaigns to students? When are we sending out emails, text messages, et cetera? And on the slide, I have an example of some of the programming that comes out of the care part of this. So things that we feel like students need to be exposed to. This is just our September at a glance at our Forest Park campus. Early alert system, we've had that for about 5 years. We have done an impact analysis of that and had strategy sessions to see for improvements for that. For this fall, the improvements that you will see is that we will have targeted populations of students. So we are focusing on our high DFW courses that have large gaps between our Black and white students. And so we will be reaching out to faculty teaching those classes, asking how their students are doing as checkpoints, and then they can raise an alert. When they raise an alert, it attaches to some area in our college that can best support that student for that alert. alert reason. And then also with this, we're introducing student self-alerts. It's a lot easier for a student to say they need help online than to walk into an office. And so we're giving them that option now, and that will do the same thing. It will send them an email with some resources, but then also alert staff that the student needs some help. I'm going fast. Okay. Website redesign. So the website has really evolved over the last year. So a lot of credit to marketing and the leadership of Jennifer Arvin. And I am not even scratching the surface on what I'm talking about with website redesign right now. But I did want to point out some of the things that are key to the enrollment process. With Pathways, one of the pillars of Pathways is to clarify the path for students. They have to see what it is that they want to do and know what it is that it's going to take to do that. And so we've built pages, a landing page for Pathways, landing pages for each of our schools, and then also enhanced our program pages. And it has the information that students want to know about programs. They want to know, what kind of job can I get? How long is it going to take? And how much am I going to get paid? So we have implemented Career Coach. And so on this slide, you'll see a career widget that has just rolling slides of the different careers that you can get for the programs when you're on that program page. And you can click on that and get even more information about the programs, as well as take a career assessment. We will be developing more pages, but I'm just going to leave you guys in anticipation for that. And then I don't want to end without giving some credit to the student support, and that's our other vice presidents. For student engagement, Dr. Ware with Campus Life and Athletics. For student support, Dr. Robender with Counseling, C Campus Student Advocacy and Resource. And then Dr. LaShanda Boone is Multicultural Student Support with TRIO, Upward Bound, Black Male Achievers, PepsiCo Scholars, my goodness, Study Abroad, and Veterans. That all really plays into retention and really impacts some students that can use that the most. Now I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie.
Don't worry, I only have one slide.
You were good. You're fine.
So in addition to the recommendations and collaborative work that were already mentioned, the enrollment process review team also discussed a few other things that I wanted to mention that are either in progress or currently in practice. So in order to include and have high numbers of dual enrollment students, our team suggested a virtual course authorization workflow. That way we can streamline the enrollment of our DE students and allow them to have their classes approved or changed quickly, because it's all virtually and automated. That way they're registering for the courses that they need, both for their high school and for our programs as well. We also talked a lot about having equal access to student services, meaning that all departments would have a uniform hours of operation, and that students would be able to meet with the staff members, both in person and virtually, all year round. So some of this has included the expansion of our chat features, the updating of the call center processes and voicemails, as well as the addition of virtual drop-in availability so that students can meet with their student success advisors via Zoom on a drop-in basis. And then lastly, we looked a lot at our visiting student population. We recommended the creation of a visiting student form, which is still in its early stages, from VP Boone. And this form would basically be something that would help streamline their experience and is completed by the school host institution of that student. And it would make it so those students don't have to submit multiple forms of documentation, especially if they're just coming in for 1 or 2 courses over the summer. And lastly, the course override process is also in progress of being simplified, so students can easily put in a request for prerequisite course overrides, no matter if it's an in-person or a virtual class, which was a large barrier to our visiting students.
With this, I'm going to end it. I think upcoming initiatives, you can see that. I think one thing is important to Dr. Davis, which is creating that one front door. So at some point we can connect all of the services that we have here at the college to one application process, which would also include workforce development, dual credit, dual enrollment, and our continuing, our new students that we have coming in. Everything else, I think you can kind of read through their collaborations, things we're looking at. And again, I'll end that with, of course, we are continuing with the continuance quality improvement to make sure that we're looking at our processes, we're listening to the students, and we're actually looking at the data to make sure we're making the right choices and making the right changes to processes.
Well,
question.
yes.
Oh my gosh. Rob,
Oh, yeah.
holy cow. That's a holy cow. This is beyond understanding what you have done. And you had to see the old to appreciate the new. And this is mind-blowingly good changes.
Yes, it is.
I can't express enough how much experience I had in the past with decades of trying to get where you are. And it shows that you've listened to the feedback that you've been given and worked like workhorses to get this done. I cannot congratulate you enough. The one question I had, you mentioned somebody coming to school for the summer and you're handling that. Do you see I understand about the high schools and that, are we having non-traditional students coming?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Is this part of the outreach?
Absolutely. It's part of our community outreach. We make sure when we target certain employers, we target certain events to make sure we're there where they are. We're out in the community.
Yeah,
So absolutely.
That was the
Yes.
only group that I was wondering how
Yes.
you did outreach. So, and this students coming in for the summer to pick up courses is a big deal. That was extremely difficult for them. And so if you're making that process easier for them, it's greatly appreciated. But I don't know, everybody knows their own thing, finance, whatever you know. I know this and the problems that occurred. Bravo and congratulations. You've done yeoman's work and it's going to pay off. Thank you.
One thing, sorry, I'd like to add on to that. First of all, thank you, ladies, for a terrific presentation.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Probably 3 or 4 years at least worth of work and sort of less than 30 minutes. But to tag off what Mary was talking about, I came in 2015. We didn't even have a leader really in student affairs. They tried to combine it with other leaders in the college. It was a confused mess is the best way I can describe it. So they're basically untangling years and years, probably decades of 4 different campuses with 4 different enrollment and financial aid processes. And it's taken a long time for them to get here, but these 3 and the other student affairs staff that are here really deserve a lot of congratulations for all the work that they did. And Stephanie, the committee she was referencing on enrollment process improvement, that was faculty and student affairs staff.
That's
so we
right.
brought faculty in. What we try to do here lately is bring people in that don't know much about how something works and have them look at it.
Mhm.
And it's always amazing what they see that for those of us that are real close to it miss. They try to look at it from the student perspective and make it easier for the student. So anyway, I just want to make those comments that I believe that the student affairs team has moved the needle in a big way over the last several years. It's been hard for them to do that, but I really appreciate all they've done.
Absolutely.
Yes, certainly. I think major kudos is I think this is the conversation we were having some time ago of what we'd like to see in the process. One thing I'd be interested in getting is actually the report of what they said when you talk about some of the tests they ran, like what were the gaps that they kind of said. I know you highlighted some of the things that you guys are doing, but just interested because I know one of the things we talked about, we're having secret students come and roll before and see. So what did RNL really come back and say? Is that more detailed, just out of curiosity? If you can have Dr. Pittman share that with us, just of like, here's where the tests they ran, here's the data they found, and that, so we can have something to benchmark and hopefully be able to do another test in a year or 2 just to see, are we improving in those areas that give us opportunities to improve in, to make sure we are hitting the marks. And whether it's RNL again or our own people just going through the process of having that, I think would be important to just kind of have some baseline data for that. But certainly you guys have done a lot of work, and certainly it's paying off in a competitive market when there's less and less students out there, and an enrollment across the country is really going down. And so as we have to figure out new ways to market ourselves, you guys are doing a terrific job, and your team is thinking of ways at a rapid speed, because we know there's a lot going out of the college right now. And certainly having new buildings is also a great selling point for many people to want to enroll in our college. And having a 4-year degree is another major selling point, is one of the only ones that have a 4-year degree. But I'll leave it up to any other trustees if anyone else wants to share out.
I'll just chime in and say, I think it's, all of us are on the board are so, our big concern is the student. That's what is important to us. And that's what clearly is important to y'all. And I think the fact that there aren't any gaps, the fact that somebody's not going to step off a cliff, that somebody's got their hand right there. And I think, for a lot of our new students, they don't know this at all. They don't, maybe their parents didn't do this. Maybe they, and for somebody to actually care and to be there every step of the way. You clearly said, the numbers prove it. The numbers prove how much that is important. And I can't thank you guys enough. It's just brilliant. So.
Yes,
job.
let's give one more round of applause for all the work you guys are doing. Well, thank you again. And with that, we will adjourn our workshop. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.